Hello and welcome to Runes in Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remastered Part 1. In this video we're going to cover what runes are and how they work, and in Part 2 we'll examine other related topics like how to upgrade a rune, how to remove a rune from its item, or transfer a rune from one item to another. As a reminder, this video is for the Remaster Edition, so if your game is using the original Legacy Edition of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, please see the link in the description for a video that covers those rules. Most magic weapons, armor, and shields gain their special properties through runes. Runes represent ancient secrets in magical science that bestow power to the items that they're engraved upon, and they take two forms: fundamental runes and property runes. Fundamental runes provide the most basic and common magical effects. For our weapons, these runes increase attack bonus and damage. For armor, these runes provide a bonus to armor class and saves. And for shields, these runes provide an increase to the shield's hardness, hit points, and break threshold. Any weapon or armor can have one and only one of each kind of fundamental rune. The second type of runes are property runes. These grant many other effects beyond the basic enhancements provided by fundamental runes. For example, making a suit of armor resistant to acid damage or setting a longsword's blade on fire. Let's take a closer look at fundamental runes first. There are two kinds of fundamental runes for armor, and those are armor potency runes and resilient runes. Armor potency runes grant an item bonus to armor class, and the number of the bonus also indicates the maximum number of property runes that the item can have. So a suit of +1 leather armor means it is a suit of leather armor and gets a +1 item bonus to armor class. In addition, the potency rune makes the armor magical, and it will register to spells like Detect Magic and Read Aura. The +1 potency rune also means this leather armor may have one property rune etched on it as well. The second fundamental rune for armor is the resilient rune. Resilient runes grant a bonus to all saving throws and come in three varieties: resilient, greater resilient, and major resilient. Each of those runes increase the bonus of saves by 1, so resilient runes are +1 to all saves, greater resilient runes are +2, and major resilient runes are +3. Remember, when you see the name of a suit of armor, the plus value in the name refers to its armor potency rune, and is also the bonus it receives to armor class. The plus number has nothing to do with the resilient rune and its bonus to saves. Instead, the armor will have the word resilient for +1 to saves, the name will say greater resilient for a +2 to saves, or major resilient for a +3 to all saves. Fundamental runes for weapons function in much the same way. The first fundamental rune for weapons is weapon potency. When a potency rune is added to a weapon, it is shown as a plus number in the weapon's name, so a +2 battle axe has a +2 weapon potency rune etched on it. And that plus number is both the item bonus added to attack rolls as well as the number of property runes the weapon can have. And remember, that plus value is only added to attack rolls. It does not grant a bonus to damage. Instead, to increase the weapon's damage, you'll want to etch the second kind of weapon fundamental rune, which is called striking. Striking runes can increase the number of damage dice rolled with a weapon. A striking rune increases the weapon's damage to 2 dice. A greater striking rune increases base damage to 3 dice, and a major striking rune increases base damage to 4 dice. So if you add a striking rune to a longsword, it will deal 2d8 damage on a hit instead of 1d8. And remember, this is an increase to the weapon's base damage dice. So anytime the weapon dice are modified, the extra damage from striking is also modified as well. For example, the two-hand trait changes the weapon's base damage dice. So a +1 striking bastard sword does 2d8 damage when used with one hand and 2d12 damage when used in both hands, not 1d12 plus 1d8. And the damage due to striking is also increased if the effect specifically says it is. For example, the deadly trait states that its damage is increased if the weapon has a greater or major striking rune, therefore the number of deadly dice are increased. But not if the weapon has just a regular striking rune. But striking runes do not increase the damage dice of damaging effects that are in addition to the base physical weapon damage. For example, bonus damage from a sneak attack would not be increased because of a striking rune, or fire damage caused by a flaming weapon that also would not be increased due to a striking rune. Shields only have one type of rune, which is called a reinforcing rune. Reinforcing runes increase the shield's hardness, hit points, and break threshold. Also note that reinforcing runes come in 6 types, each with increasing bonuses and level requirements. They are minor, lesser, moderate, greater, major, and supreme. As mentioned before, there are 2 kinds of runes. Fundamental runes are the core runes that provide basic enhancements, and the second type of runes are property runes. Simply put, property runes let the armor or weapon do all kinds of other cool stuff beyond the basic things that come from fundamental runes. Want to give your sword the Vorpal quality, or wear armor that can turn you invisible? Then you need to add property runes. When you look at a property rune stat block, you will see some effects are passive and always occur when the item is in use. For example, armor etched with a shatter rune grants its benefit whenever the armor is worn and invested. But other runes, like the shifting rune, require you to activate the item. In this case, it takes a single action to use the shifting rune special properties. There are way too many property runes to go over all of them here, but it's pretty simple. You would just treat those property runes in a very similar way as you would any other magical item. The key difference being that runes cannot be used on their own, they must be attached to another item. It's also important to remember that there are limits to how many runes a single item can have etched on it. Each weapon or suit of armor can have 1 potency rune, and either 1 resilient rune if it's armor, or 1 striking rune if it is a weapon, and then can have as many property runes as the bonus that's provided by its potency rune. So for example, a +1 longsword has a +1 weapon potency rune etched on it. A +1 striking longsword has a +1 weapon potency rune and a striking rune, and a +1 striking flaming longsword has a +1 weapon potency rune, a striking rune, and a flaming rune. This longsword cannot gain a second property rune until it first increases its potency rune to +2. And since the striking rune is a fundamental rune, it does not count against the number of property runes the sword can have. And note that an item cannot have more than 1 of the same type of fundamental rune, so you couldn't have 2 +1 potency runes and instead would start with a single +1 potency rune and then upgrade it to +2. But note that a weapon or armor can have multiple etchings of the same kind of property runes on them, however the benefits do not stack. If a weapon or armor has 2 or more of the same type of property rune, you only count whichever one provides the highest benefit. That should give you a basic idea of how runes work in Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remastered. In the next video of this series, we will expand this conversation by covering topics such as how to upgrade a rune, how to remove a rune from an item, and how to transfer a rune from one item to another. And as always, I'd like to take a quick moment to thank everybody who supports me in this channel, whether that be by clicking the like button, subscribing to the channel, or subscribing to the Patreon. I greatly appreciate everything you do to support me. And with that, thanks for watching, take care, and happy gaming.